but I started really looking at what was my calling. And I really looked at like, what are my gifts of how I could make a difference, how I could live my life differently. Like, I just have a way of being able to look at people's things and seeing the opportunities to optimize what they're doing to get better results.
All right, welcome to another episode of Highstakes with Steve Rozenberg. As you all know, one of the reasons I love doing this show is I like people. I like talking to people. I like meeting people. And nowadays in this digital world, we don't always get a chance to just go out and meet people like the old days, pre-social media, pre-phone. So, for me, being an airline pilot for the last 30 years, traveling the world, building businesses, I've learned that you can get a lot more in a conversation with someone in 5 minutes by just asking them, what's your deal? What's your story? And everybody has a story. One thing I know that's guaranteed, anyone that walks past you, whether you're in Sydney, Australia, Buenos Aires, LA, Miami, every single person that walks past you, they have a past, they have a current that they're living right now. And like every single one of us on earth, they all have a future and we don't know what's going to happen in the next second, let alone the next day. And sometimes it's just a matter of slowing down and asking them and talking to them. So today I have a guest, Stacey Hylen is here, and we're going to get to know her a little bit and kind of see what is her past, what is her current, and maybe we can predict a little bit of her future. So Stacey, thanks for being on.
Hey, Steve, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
All right. So give us the quick 30-second overview of who Stacey is.
Yeah, well, I'm a business coach. I'm a certified AI consultant, past vice president of consulting for Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes business mastery thing. I am a mom of 3, and as of this week, a grandma of 1 little girl. So that's very
Wow.
exciting. And I'm a travel lover as well.
Good for you. I actually am good friends with quite a few people that were with Tony Robbins, Eli Wild, Jason Cisneros, Roberto Monaco, Joe Callo, which may be names that you know. I don't know. I don't know how the infrastructure works.
Yeah, it
with
was
Tony,
completely a different, it's not the firewalking part of the business, it's the business mastery part when he and Chet Holmes were partners. So it was completely a new company, new division.
yeah, I actually spoke at an event with his daughter. I believe her name's Amanda.
Yeah, Amanda and I
Yeah,
we're very close. So
yeah. It's about 4 or 5 years ago. We were at an event, and very, very nice, very nice
she's
young lady.
amazing. She's amazing.
Okay. So this is good. This is good. I'm looking forward to this conversation. So let me ask you this. You've obviously got a ton of accolades. You've got the resume that, goes down the table and through the room. But if we took all those away, right? How would they introduce you as a person?
Oh, this is so deep. We're going like
Going right into it, Stacey.
So I think I'm a person that has, like, my mission is to give entrepreneurs back to their families professionally. And so for me, it's always family first.
Love that.
And business second, because my dad died when he was 56. And now that I'm in my 50s, I'm like, holy crap, that's so young. And he died with a lot of regrets. So I'm really trying to live a life without having those regrets of not spending the time with my kids and my family that I want to. And so I'm really walking my talk when I say, like, at a zero without the hustle. Like, I walk that talk. I was anti-hustle before anti-hustle was cool. Like, it's been over 20 years.
and let me ask you, how do you put that into practicality for people? Like, I get their systems and, I get all that, but how do you as a person on a daily basis put that into practical applicational terms to someone that you've never met, that you walk down the street, you're having coffee with someone, maybe they're having a bad day. How does Stacey rip away all the other stuff, help that person?
Well, I think the first thing is to give them permission to like want what they want, because what I want and what they want is not the same thing. Right. Okay. And so for me, like, it's funny because I'm really more at home, like in the lake in the mountains, in the woods, right? And I might go into the city for things, but it's not my thing, right? Other people, their thing might be like, oh, I want to go see a Broadway show, twice a week, or they want to, be immersed in something different that I want to. But I think it's for every person to really look at what lights them up, what gets them excited, what's important to them, and then give them permission to say, you know what? We only get this one life. Like, you get to design it the way you want it. We start with lifestyle design in my business coaching, because what I've found is if you do the business first, the life comes after, and you just kind of fit it into the nooks and crannies. And what I want you to do is say, like, this is the kind of life I want. How can I design my business to help that come true?
It's interesting. Myself being a coach as well, and having conversations with entrepreneurs, as you have, I always ask the question, why are you doing this? And we get the bullshit answer of, I'm doing it for family. I want to make money so that I'm not stressed anymore. And it's all these surface level questions. And once in a while I'll get, hey, I want to build a legacy. And then I'll ask them, I'll say, okay, so you're doing this for your family, right? You're doing this to not be stressed. You're doing this to enjoy life. You're doing this to spend time with your family. And of course the answer is always a yes. And I said, if I take your phone right now and I call your kids or your spouse, will they agree that they are actually getting and reaping the rewards of what you just told me? Because if not, someone is lying right now. Either you're lying to me, or you're lying to them, or you're lying to everyone, including yourself.
I was going to say, probably they're lying to themselves is the first thing. And I think it's interesting because I've had clients that have gone from 6 to 8 figures working with me. And one of the things that was really important is, one of my clients came back to me and he said, I've grown my business to 8 figures. And he said, I compare myself to some of my colleagues and friends that I know who have bigger businesses, but their personal lives are a disaster.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm so grateful that we've built this in a way that, he's been able to take time off with his kids when they went through hard times. He's been able to go golfing. He's been able to do, trips with his family. Like, he had someone in his family who lost, their spouse. They went on a trip last week, to really spend time with their close family members. So, it's really important to be able to, like you said, have that calendar reflect your actions. My grandma, she always used to say, well, actions speak louder than words. When I'd say, I love you, and she'd be like, actions speak louder than words. So, it was like that, show me you love me. Don't just say it.
Sure. Yeah. And it's interesting. I'm just a big believer, exactly what you said, of careful what you ask for. You want to make 8 figures. Yeah, congratulations. They're going to go, well, Steve, I lost my family. I'm going to say, well, you didn't ask for that. You asked for 8 figures. So you need to be, the more hyper specific you could be of achieving that goal. What does your life look like? It's not the money. I've never met anyone on their deathbed that says, man, I just wish I had more money in my bank account. What do they all say? I wish I had more memories. I wish I spent more time with family. That has zero to do with a number that we give value to, that just happens to be sitting in a bank that we never get to see, that's being used by the bank for other purposes. Right. It has nothing to do with it. It's ego, of course. We all know that. On your journey, you've obviously, I'm sure you've seen a lot, done a lot, ups and downs, but is there a part of your journey that nobody knows about, no one claps for, but it internally changed everything about your direction in life?
Well, I mean, really, for me, it was the death of my father. I had been in sales all my life. Like, I started selling in 3rd grade. I started selling B2B in 5th grade. Like, I loved sales. I had so much fun doing it. And I worked for a Fortune 500 big company in insurance. I was number 2 my first week in the company. And so that was like, it was so fun, right? But it was very money focused. And then when my dad got diagnosed with cancer, it happened like the end of September, and he died the day before American Thanksgiving. So it was like so fast. And so when that happened, like when he got sick, I had to leave insurance. I couldn't sell. I couldn't talk about people dying. I couldn't talk about people having cancer all day long. And at that point, I really started um, I started another job selling equipment sales in the beauty industry, but I started really looking at what was my calling. Like, what was, like, I took that time that was really hard and looked at, like, what did that mean for my future versus just saying, like, oh, this, this hard thing happened, my life sucks, I'm sad, which I was devastated.
Sure.
But I really looked at, like, what are my gifts, what are my things that I had, of how I could make a difference, how I could live my life differently. And when I was in the beauty industry, I was doing a very consultative sales process, and my client, like, one of my clients increased her sales 200% in 1 year.
Wow.
And she that was like, wow, this is more fun than actually the selling, like helping the people do this and finding, like, I just have a way of being able to look at people's things and seeing the opportunities to optimize what they're doing to get better results. And so that was really a spiritual thing. So it wasn't really necessarily just like a business decision. I mean, I went on retreats, I prayed, I read books, I journaled, I did all of the things. And that's how I ended up in coaching.
What is it that you like most when you see that transformation? You know, I know what you feel when you see that light bulb go off, when you see that flip. What is it for you that drives you to get that?
It is feeling like I've made a difference for somebody, but not just for them and their business, but again, for their family, because money that we make in our business allows us to have these opportunities that if we don't have the money, we don't have those opportunities. One of my clients, he was on Inc. 500, Inc. 5000, and he had been on there for several years. But one of the things that was so cool for me is that he said, Stacey, you whip off these marketing things off your head, like, direct response copywriting, all of this so easily. But the most exciting thing for me was when he took his kids to Disney and they'd never been on a family vacation. And he started taking Fridays off to go to Taekwondo with his son. Like, that
Wow.
was like the shift allowed that to happen, which is another family that's having, at the end of their life, they're sitting there on their rocking chair. They're not like, oh, I missed my kids growing up.
Yeah. It's it's real, right? I'm not sure how familiar you are with my story, but I lost my son just a few years ago at 19 years old on a motorcycle, my only child. And, you know, he bought his first rental property at 14 years old.
Wow.
He traveled to 20 countries while he was alive, scuba dived in the South Pacific, bungee jumped in New Zealand, and just, we lived life. I just didn't know it was going to be compressed.
Yeah.
And I tell people a lot of times when you have a tragedy like your father and like my son, um, people always say, like, what lesson did you learn from that? And I tell people there really wasn't a lesson I learned because I was already living that life. I was living the life that you've got to enjoy the memories, and
Oh,
and I just didn't realize that I was going to be the one that was going to be the person actually experiencing it. And, you know, I'm glad I can be the person that said, I'm glad I did it while I could, instead of saying, I wish I would have.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I started a foundation for high school kids that want to get into the trade industry, because that's what he did. But to your point, I, I, I try to show people that it could happen, right? The worst thing in the world could happen.
I
And
know.
who do you want to be on the other side of that trauma?
Yeah.
Like were, it kind of, it obviously jolted you to another direction. Let me
Yeah.
ask you, and this may be an awkward question, but if your dad was alive, what do you think you'd be doing today?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I think I would probably have been more sucked into that whole bro marketing type thing. I think the coaching is an ideal fit for me. Um, but I don't know that I would have had that switch over. I could have just stayed in sales and kept, winning all the awards and all of that. But um, yeah, that's a really good question. But I hope that I would have come over to coaching because I really think that that's a gift. Um, and maybe more. professional speaking like I've been doing. But I think that, I could have not learned that lesson. And, um, one of the things that when my dad was sick, um, I had read the book Simple Abundance by Sarah Ban Breathnack,
Yeah.
and it's an interesting book because it's kind of very like about taking care of your house and your environment and things like that. So it would seem more like a housewifey kind of book, but Oprah had recommended it. And that's when Oprah started doing her gratitude journal. And I started doing the gratitude journal when my dad had cancer. And so every single day, I wrote down my 5 gratitudes. And some days it was like I had a sandwich and it was really good. Right. And so I think like I was in the middle of that spiritual awakening when, coming from a very um, like turning away from the church that I had turned away from after some bad experiences there. So I think that, the spiritual awakening was happening and it just really accelerated with the death of my dad, and um, I think what you said with your son is so poignant, and the fact that you actually lived while he was alive and like you don't have those regrets because you actually did it with him and he got to experience all of that compressed into a shorter life is just a beautiful gift that you gave him and also gave to yourself. So,
Let me, when you are doing this transition, going into this new realm, was there ever a point that you were ready to quit and go back?
well, my husband and I have a little joke in our family. So there's always these hard days, right? As an
Yeah,
entrepreneur, you have hard days.
sure.
And, I'll say, well, at least I'm not digging ditches. But there was this little restaurant in our town where we used to live called Casso du Fort. And it's like a hot dog stand, they sell hamburgers and hot dogs and French fries. And so on a hard day, my husband would be like, well, you could always go work at Casso du Fort. And, because a lot of times as an entrepreneur, you can't, it's hard to leave your business in your other room,
Sure.
like, or on your computer when you stop for the day. And my
Yeah.
head is always like, I have a million ideas and I'm so excited about so many things, but the excitement versus the amount of time is, not in equal proportion. So I would say, like, I wish sometimes I just had a regular person brain that was satisfied with like a 9 to 5 and just like living a normal life. And that's on those hard days. But the rest of the days, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy I chose this. Like last week, I was flying home I'd gone to see my mom who just turned 80 because I thought that that's very important to me that I get to spend some time with her. And then I was going to LA for an AI conference, Mastermind. And then my husband was going to Banff for a conference. And he's been to Banff twice without me. And this is his third time. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not flying home. I'm flying to Banff. So last week I spent the week in Banff. He's like, I'm going to be busy with meetings. And I said, I don't care. Like we spent one day hiking before he started his meetings. He had his meetings. We went hiking, spent some time outside in the mountains and the beauty. I worked from this beautiful place a little bit, but then we did some other days of hiking after. But like that, I jumped on that moment because I know that, I don't know what's going to happen next year or the year after, right? So like, you have to seize the day.
Yeah. As you've evolved from I'll say rank and file with the insurance company to going through, obviously Tony Robbins and everything. Were there versions of you that you had to let go of that person? Like, and I'll give you an example. A lot of times when New Year's Eve comes, right? And we all have these New Year's resolutions, right? And everyone writes them down and they buy new gym clothes and all this stuff. And, and it never comes to fruition after, 6 weeks or whatever. And I always tell people, in my opinion, everybody talks about what they need to do more of. I need to work out more. I need to eat better. I need to do this. But no one ever talks about, what do I need to stop doing? Like, what do I need to let go of as a person? And I think sometimes saying no, letting go of things is more valuable than doing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Did you have to let go of some prior beliefs in order to get you to where you are today?
Well, yeah, I think there's a lot of money beliefs that we grow up with in our culture, right? That
Sure.
money is evil, money is bad. Like we start like from the Disney movies at a very young age. Like Cruella was like this evil woman with the big fur coats and trying to grab the puppies to make fur coats. I mean, so from a very young age, rich equaled bad, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of mindset that needs to come around of creating wealth, maintain, holding on to the wealth. And I think that, that programming had to, like the more money you have, the more good you can do, right? Like what I can donate more money to the local food bank now than I could, when I didn't have money, right? And so I think that's one of the programmings. And I think the other thing was comparison, because a
Hmm.
lot of times, especially like in the early social media days, um, I would see people that I considered peers, and I would see them like breaking through different things in their business, and I wasn't there, right? But I was able to have my daughter home with me. I was able to meet the school bus, right? So I had to stop comparing myself to like what they did and what they achieved based on, like, for me, I put the family first. I wasn't going and doing conferences all over when my kids were little. Now my kids, like my youngest is now in college, like now all of a sudden I'm like, okay, like it's go time again, right? So I had to really stop that comparisonitis that sometimes we get stuck into, and people doing things that you know they would promise things on social media that I'm not going to make outlandish promises, like, and do all that bro
You
marketing
could say
type
it. They
stuff.
lie. You could say it.
Yeah, they lie, right? And so I'm not willing to do that. Like I remember I did a webinar years ago, and I'm like, how I made, and it was like several $100,000, but I like literally had the amount in there with like
Exact
the
number.
numbers with, yeah, with like less than 20 hours a week. And other people are like, oh, you have $1 million business. And it's like, yeah, okay, right.
Yeah.
So
Um, what are your thoughts on imposter syndrome?
yeah, I think it's something that, I've seen in myself. I've seen it. I have three daughters. So I think a lot of times women are more affected by it than men, because men are like, just go for it. And like they apply for more jobs that they're not qualified than women do. Women are like, oh, I don't meet like three of the things on the list, I'm not going to apply. Um, so I think it's something that, I work regularly in terms of mindset work of like, who am I to charge X? Like, really like creating myself a belief of, what is that belief? Like the results I get my clients, all the training I've had. So you really have to build yourself this resource of like believing in yourself, giving yourself that, especially in the hard days. Cause I think the imposter syndrome doesn't come up so much on the good days, it comes up on the bad days. And so I love to have like a file of wins and things like that, that, if you're having a hard day, you're like, hey Stacey, you've done all this, you've got this, you can get to that next spot.
Yeah. When you to shift, what does your inner voice tell you today that it didn't tell you back then? Like you get up in a day, are you worried about how many likes you have on social media? Are you worried about your bank account? Like, what does that inner voice talk to you about today?
Oh gosh, yeah, because I'm not worried about those things. And it's interesting that you said that, because I love this thing of like, what's something that you do today that you didn't do in the past that you
Yeah.
take for granted? Of like, you buy groceries and you just throw stuff in your cart and you don't even add them up. Like, what are those
Right.
things? Like, you put things on auto pay that you would never put on auto pay because you weren't sure you'd have the money in the account. So I love seeing that. And I think doing that from a mindset, it's like, I think the thing now is like being in my 50s is like, am I going to be able to do all the things I want to do while I'm still here?
Time.
Right? That's really the thing of like, and looking at what's important to me, what I want to do, what I want to experience, and who I want to impact, the times I want to have with my girls, and my new baby granddaughter.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't even get to meet her yet. We're going tomorrow to meet her. So I'm
Oh,
so
that is so
excited.
cool. Well, let me ask it a different way. How would you define freedom today for Stacey?
I think it's being able to do what I want when I want with the people I want. I think that's really stayed with me I think that's been my version of it for a long time. And I think that's still true.
Okay, I like that. So let's talk about what you're doing today. Tell me what is Stacey of today doing?
Well, I'm doing business coaching, and in the last few years, I became a certified AI consultant, which um, it's interesting because I'm not a tech person. Like I'm not like I've done a lot of things on tech,
Sure.
but I'm not a techie. And when I saw AI come, one of the coaches and mentors that I have, I mean, this was like about 4 years ago. I was one of the first 1% of ChatGPT users. And so I have some thoughts and challenges around the whole AI thing, but I thought, you know what? If I just resist this, it doesn't mean this is going away. Like I can't sit there and be like, no, 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 like AI is bad, AI is this. Like I knew that I needed to ride that wave because if I want to be able to serve my clients as well, I need to be able to show them how that they could use it effectively as
Sure.
well. So I'm doing that. I also run two masterminds, which I find really fun. And one of them now has been going on for 9 years.
Nice.
So the people, it was supposed to be a 6 month mastermind and they just keep renewing. So um,
Not a bad thing.
no, so I just love the people I work with. I have a lot of fun. I it's funny because at this mastermind I was at last week, they said, go look at your Instagram, and they said like look at your pictures that you have on your, like if you go to the little search bar, and when I go to the search bar, like that's what I get, right? It's mountains, it's hiking, it's a baby, right? And they were like, if you're seeing stuff like that, that's not good because it's not what your clients want. Like your clients want like AI stuff and this. And I said, you know what? If I think about my clients that I have, one is hiking in the Himalayas right now. One just went to New Mexico in the mountains with their family member that I mentioned before because they had lost their spouse. Another one, like he's found his best business ideas that he's gone on to have several exits while skiing in Japan in the mountains. And I'm like, you know what? I think me living my life and doing this stuff is attracting my perfect client. So I just thought that was really funny to see it reflected back. And then I decided to not go with what they said because I'm like, my people want the AI, but they want to know that it's driving them towards more of what they want.
And I think we always want to be careful with the word they. Who are
Yeah.
they? Like
Yeah,
who
exactly.
are these people that are they?
Yeah.
I just always find it interesting when we get that. So okay, let me ask you, the Stacey that was transitioning, if you were to talk to her, right? From insurance to this crazy world of entrepreneurship, what advice would you give her or the Staceys of the world that are contemplating this right now?
Yeah, I would say run your own race because I think every time look over at the next lane. I don't know if you remember at the Olympics a few years ago when that swimmer, I want to say it was Colin something, but I can't think of his name, but he kept looking over at Michael Phelps, right? And he kept looking at the next lane and he was like losing ground every time he looked over his shoulder. And I think as entrepreneurs, we tend to look at, what are our competitors doing
Sure.
instead of saying like, what am I doing? What is the best I can do today? What is the action I can take? And I think like the revenue generating activities is really important. One of my old coaches used to say, Chris Barrow, he used to say, stay out of the BS funnel. And I would like tell myself that again, like stay out of the BS funnel of like tweaking things and trying to make things perfect because nothing will ever be perfect. You just have to keep moving forward.
Well, it's funny when you're talking about that swimmer. The reason nobody knows his name is because he didn't win.
Exactly.
I always
Exactly.
tell people the gold gets everything. They get the money, they get the accolades. Bronze and silver, they just get the memory of watching the gold be placed on someone else's neck.
Yeah.
And that's the
Yeah.
same in business. If you're
Yeah.
watching someone else, you're going to keep watching from the stands, you
Yeah.
know?
Exactly.
And yeah, that's a very good point. Well, Stacey, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, they want to find you and learn more about you. I'm sure your masterminds are awesome, and your coaching obviously is, I'm sure, top notch. How would they find you?
So you can go to staceyhylen.com, which is my website, or I am Stacey Hylen everywhere on all the social medias. So feel free to connect with me there. But what I think is really fun is I have a free gift called moreclientsandcash.com, which everybody wants more clients and cash.
Sure.
So if you go to moreclientsandcash.com, it gives you some of the principles from my book, Hidden Profits, that's going to be coming out soon. So it's training you on how to find more money in your business without doing more marketing. So
I love
again, it's
that.
a way to make more money without doing more effort and work and grind. The average client finds $85,000 in hidden profits.
Wow.
So if you go there, it gives you several of the hidden profit strategies that you can go through a little quiz to see which one is right for your business. And then there's a custom GPT on there that'll actually help you implement it and write the emails, do all the stuff. So it's worth
That's awesome.
thousands of dollars. So
Yeah. Oh, great. Okay. Well, we'll definitely have that in the show notes as well. Any parting words, Stacey, for the audience that you would like for them to know?
well, I would just say like whatever you want, you can have it if you allow yourself to dream it. And I think, you know, if you're listening to podcasts and consuming podcasts, I think this one with Steve is very different because he's really looking at a lot of the journey. And I think at any time in your journey, you can decide where the next road is. Like, do you want to keep going down the road you're going on of grinding and hustling? Or do you want to like create something different? Like, it's a choice.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, you know how they say time expands to, the work expands to the amount of time you have. So if you decide like, hey, I want to only work, 30 hours a week, I want to work, whatever it is, like create that new normal for yourself and you'll be surprised at what you can do and what you can accomplish and still have the life that you want.
Love that. Stacey, it was great meeting you, and I appreciate you coming on the show and dropping your wisdom, and we'll have the information that you talked about in the show notes. Once again, thank you for being on the show, and for everyone, thanks for being on another episode of High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. We'll catch you next week with another amazing guest. See you guys then.